Hello Year 9 and welcome to today's lesson. Before you begin, please make sure you've downloaded the Galaxy KR and Galaxy representation documents from the team's assignment. You'll be using those today. And this is the third lesson on the Galaxy advert, which is our first advertising close study product. Before we start our knowledge retrieval task, I want you to think about narrative structure. We looked at narrative structure last time, and those are elements like props, characters, Todorov's narratology, and Levi Strauss's binary opposites. So I want you to think about the narrative structure of this advert. You've got 6 key images taken from the advert. They are also on the KR sheet. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to briefly describe each moment, and I'd like you to identify which elements of the narrative are featured. So for example, the first image, what we see is a busy Italian market scene. It is linked to the 1953 film Roman Holiday, and what's happened is a bus journey has been disrupted by a market stall which has been knocked down and scattered food all over the road. Although we can't see her in that shot, we know that Audrey is on the bus. And this is the moment where the equilibrium has been disrupted, and there's a clear binary opposite here between the bus and the fruit stall. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to identify what's happening in the other 5 images and explain how they fit into narrative theory, whether that is prop, Todorov, Levi Strauss, or all 3. So take about 5 minutes to go through that sheet, fill the sheet in, or print it out and copy out, or if you want to, just write in number by number. And when you're ready, move on to the next slide. Well, here are my answers. So you've seen the first one, the market scene. The second one, the hero driver comes along and he signals to Audrey that she can come into the car. And here is a recognition of the disruption and the hero, whether that is Audrey or the driver, depending on your point of view, and the binary opposite, him in the car, her in the bus, emphasized by that medium long shot, contrasting the two. Now, obviously, another recognition shot is the shot in the bus where Audrey can't eat her chocolate. Third shot, Audrey borrows, in inverted commas, the bus driver's hat and puts it on the hero's head. And this links to the idea of control. Audrey is in charge here. The bus driver is obviously a donor. You could argue that he is a villain because he has inadvertently stopped Audrey from eating her chocolate, although it wasn't really his fault. Possibly he's a false hero because he couldn't help her, whereas the driver, the car driver, the chauffeur can. Audrey's attempt to repair, which is her going into the car with the chauffeur. Shot 4, Audrey sits in the back of the car with the hero wearing the hat, or maybe she's the hero. It depends on your point of view. He now resembles a chauffeur. So he is either the hero or the helper, depending on your point of view. It is the attempt to repair leading up to the new equilibrium, and clearly the binary, he's in the front, she is in the back. The shot of the cheese pull shot, she's relaxing in the car, she eats the Galaxy chocolate. It is semiotic of luxury. We see a moment of luxury. She eats a little, she doesn't eat too much. Again, it emphasizes that this is a luxury. Also reveals the text. And this is the princess, this is the prize, and a new equilibrium where she can now eat the chocolate. And the final shot, new equilibrium, car drives along the coast with the slogan, "Why have cotton when you can have silk?" And we are into the end of the story, and they all lived happily ever after. So hopefully you got something like that. What I want you to think about before we move on to representation is the semiotics of the advert. And semiotics are basically how meaning is created. Now you'll notice in the previous task I talked about some things being semiotic, the hat being semiotic of control, the chocolate being semiotic of luxury. And semiotics is basically how codes and conventions work. Semiotics are to do with denotation and connotation and how we interpret stuff very, very quickly. So semiotics is how meaning is created through the combination of denotation and connotation. What I'd like you to do is I'd like to think about different codes in the advert. The visual codes, which is what we see, cultural codes, which is how it fits into the broader media landscape, social codes, which link to how society works, and verbal codes, which is how the text and speech works. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to first of all have a go at yourself at thinking about these things. So visual codes, semiotic codes, cultural codes, social codes, verbal codes. What I'd like you to do is, as I'm going through these, is I'd like you to write them in. Visual codes, chocolate. We see the chocolate, and the chocolate becomes a symbol of luxury. It becomes something that we want to attain. And the moment she eats the chocolate is the moment she has achieved a moment of luxury. So the chocolate becomes a visual representation of luxury. Similarly, the sports car, it is a visual representation, it is a sign, it's a symbol of wealth. It becomes a code for wealth. We look at the car, we look at the driver, we think he's well off. So the chocolate and the sports car, we look at those and we decode wealth. That is, they become semiotic codes for wealth. Cultural. As we know, Audrey Hepburn, she is a symbol of Hollywood, glamour, the golden age. Obviously, there is the intertextuality with Audrey Hepburn's films. So Audrey herself is a cultural semiotic code. Now, we don't actually need to know who Audrey is to understand the advert, but if we do know who Audrey is, it does give the advert a deeper connotation. The social codes and the gender codes. There is an implicit romance between Audrey and the driver, and that is implied by the way they look at each other and by the fact that we know how this kind of film goes. And being honest about it, the advert is more aimed at a female audience, because traditionally the female audience is more into this kind of film, this kind of situation. But she is an empowered feminine lead. So the fact that she takes the hat, the fact that she sits in the back of the car, both connote that she is in control. So she becomes a sign of, she becomes a symbol rather, of feminine power. And that is quite an interesting social code. The only verbal code really in the advert is why have cotton when you can have silk? And this encodes that Galaxy is a luxury product. Silk is a superior product to cotton. The silk is a metaphor for Galaxy. Cotton is a metaphor for other chocolates. This I know seems very complicated, and it is a way of looking at the advert that is slightly different to how we've looked at it before. It is important that you understand what semiotic codes are. And the semiotics is about meaning. It's about how we interpret what we see. And all that we're doing here is we're saying something that you do automatically, something that you do naturally. You see a flash car and you interpret wealth. You see a chocolate bar, and in this case, you interpret luxury. You see Audrey Hepburn and you interpret glamour. Audrey Hepburn is a code for glamour. The sports car is a code for wealth. The chocolate is a code for luxury and pleasure. Do make sure that you've jotted these down and then move on to the next slide. We need to consider the representation in the advert, and as we've discussed in the past, adverts use stereotypes not to be offensive and not because they can't be bothered to do anything in more detail, but simply because adverts have such a short amount of time to tell their story that they don't really have any alternative. I'd like you to make sure you've got access to the next sheet, the representation sheet. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to identify the stereotypes that are used in the advert and how they compare to reality. So I've given you a range of stereotypes: the place, the celebrity, product, the time, as in the period, and so on and so forth. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to complete the stereotypes versus reality column. Where might reality challenge the stereotype? So, for example, the town is a stereotypical Italian Mediterranean town. It looks a bit kind of chaotic, but it looks very pretty. However, Italian towns are not necessarily going to be like that. Places are not necessarily going to look as glamorous as that. What I'd like you to think about also is the effect that those stereotypes have on the target audience. Why has that beautiful Italian town been presented? Why has Audrey Hepburn been used as a celebrity? And in reality, does the reality fit in with the stereotype? Take about 10 minutes to fill in that sheet, and then I'll move on to the next slide. Right, so these are my my answers to this. You know, you can compare these to yours. And you know, some of these are Q questions that you can use to inform your ideas. Make sure that you've completed the sheet. What I need you to do now is I need you to look back through your notes using the checklist. You should have a copy of that from the first lesson. And you need to make sure that you can answer yes to all of these questions. Who the audience is and how you know. Who Audrey Hepburn is, why you think Galaxy chose Audrey Hepburn, what the meaning is of the advert, both the literal meaning and the deeper meaning. I mean, the literal meaning, buy chocolate, the literal meaning is a little story about a man and a woman. The deeper meaning is buy chocolate. That you can apply prop, that you can apply Todorov, that you can explain how Galaxy try and persuade us to buy the product. Why nostalgia is important to the target audience. Why celebrity is important to the target audience. How the advert links to other chocolate adverts. How the advert uses historical stereotypes but twists them. What CGI is. Why CGI is so vital to the advert. How there is intertextuality between the film, the celebrity and advertising. The moral issues about using a dead celebrity in advertising this product. If there are any of those that you don't know, the first thing you need to do is check back through your notes. The second thing you need to do is ask me, and I will give you the answer. But it's really important, and I'm not going to put this on the next slide, it's really important that you check this yourself, because otherwise, if you don't know it, you won't know that you don't know it. Go for about 10 minutes, going back over all your Galaxy notes, use that tick sheet and check that there's anything that you don't know, and then move on to the final task for today. Right, this is an essay task. And this is a question. It says, how does the Galaxy advert represent the product in a positive way? You should refer to codes and conventions and audience interpretation. And I'd like you to try and use the PAC structure that you'll have learnt in English. So the point would be you would describe the representation, you give examples from the advert, you explain how the representation is used to persuade, you'll focus on how the audience will interpret the representation, and give details about the social and historical context, both of the advert itself when it was made and the world featured in the advert and how that would affect the representation. How does the Galaxy advert represent the product in a positive way? You should write at least a substantial paragraph, possibly two. And to start you off, there are some sentence starters here to help you. You can use those to help you structure your essay. You can see that I've written a version of the point for you, but obviously please don't copy that out. Please do your own version of that starter. It should take you about 5 or 10 minutes to write the essay. When you've finished that, that isn't the end of this presentation, but it is the end of what you need to actually write. The next couple of slides are background information about the Galaxy advert. And it's just useful stuff to know. You don't have to copy anything out. All you need to do is read over it, and if there's anything you think is interesting, anything you think that you've missed, anything that you think is going to help you, maybe note it down. But the most important thing is that you've completed that essay, you've completed the representation sheet, you've completed the work on semiotics. So here's a little bit more information. The Audrey Hepburn advert is targeted at a mass audience with an aim of selling chocolate bars based on positive connotations of nostalgia, the image of a well-loved celebrity, and a high-concept design based on heritage, classness, and elegance. And that's taken from a Guardian advert, which is about how they made the Audrey Hepburn advert. The advert starts by presenting a classic 50s romantic movie setup. The heroine in a scrape, which the hero will save her from. The shots of Audrey on the crowded bus are designed to show her as being disadvantaged. The grading and the imagery, and that means the look of the advert, reflects the look and style of a 1950s Hollywood movie. The product appears fleetingly, using a combination of soft and hard sell. Initially, the audience is focused more on Audrey than the Galaxy bar, the connotation being that this is something which should be enjoyed on a personal level, rather than, for example, a crowded bus. The use of non-verbal communication, the only sounds the diegetic ambience of the roadway and the non-diegetic song, a version of Moon River which is associated with the actress, draw attention to the physical elegance of the actor, who is connoted as being an embodiment of the chocolate bar. The pale dress emphasizes the browns in her hair and clothes. Her behaviour, taking the bus driver's cap, using it to make the car driver her chauffeur, sitting in the back of the car, all linked to the character of Holly Golightly, which Hepburn played in Breakfast at Tiffany's, and from which the song Moon River is taken, and suggest the superiority of the chocolate connoted by the slogan. Once Audrey is sat in the car, she is able to enjoy the chocolate, with the hard sell shots in ECU designed to hammer home to the audience the positive connotations and experience of eating this confection. The producers of Galaxy have chosen to sell the chocolate bar linked to a successful and confident life. Subtextually, it is also connecting the audience to Galaxy's longevity, implying that it will allow the audience to relive a golden age as represented by the warm representation of Audrey's cinematic world. And hopefully that gives you just a bit more to think about with relation to the Galaxy advert. And that's it for the Galaxy advert. Next time we're going to move on to the NHS. Please make sure that you have photographed all your work for today. Please make sure that you've uploaded it and attached it. Please make sure that you've turned your work in, and then that is it.